Imagine you are looking out your front window right now.
Just a normal day, right?
Yeah, exactly. Take a mental snapshot of what you usually see out there. You probably notice the standard rhythm of the day just sort of unfolding.
The usual neighborhood traffic.
Right? There is maybe a tile worker heading down the block, maybe carrying a toolbox, or there is an elderly man slowly pushing a really heavy loaded bicycle up the incline.
Oh, or someone walking a dog. That is always a classic.
Yes, exactly. Over there, across the street, a family is taking a casual stroll, pointing at houses, and like you said, someone else is lingering by the corner walking their dog.
It looks entirely normal.
Completely normal.
Yeah.
A bustling, everyday neighborhood. It's the kind of scene that just fades right into the background noise of our lives because it is so utterly mundane.
We don't even register it.
We really don't. But I want to pose a question today that might actually change the way you look out that window forever.
It definitely changed my perspective.
I mean, what if absolutely none of those people are who they appear to be?
Yeah, what if it's all an act?
Right. What if every single one of them, the worker, the elderly man, the family, the dog walker, what if they are actually all covert operatives?
It sounds like a movie, but it happens.
It does. What if they are all part of this highly coordinated, incredibly patient network, and they're out there mapping every single vulnerability, every camera angle, and every daily habit of your home?
I mean, it forces a complete paradigm shift in how we perceive our own environment.
It really does. Because we are just wired to trust that, right?
Exactly. We are neurologically wired to trust the mundane. We see a prop, a dog leash, a tool belt, or like you mentioned, a heavy bicycle, and our brain instantly categorizes that person.
Like we just label them as safe.
Right. Safe or busy or just completely irrelevant to us. The cognitive load of questioning every single pedestrian is just way too high.
We'd go crazy if we scrutinized everyone.
We absolutely would. So our brains take shortcuts. We simply stop paying attention. And that blind spot, that assumption of innocence based on mundane visual cues, is exactly what sophisticated intelligence gathering operations weaponize.
And that, my friends, is exactly what this deep dive is all about today.
We have some truly fascinating material to go through.
We really do. We have our hands on something incredibly rare and revealing. We are looking at a series of highly detailed incident analysis reports and cross-referenced security logs from July 2026.
And these are meticulous. The level of detail is just staggering.
Staggering is the right word. These documents detail a relentless, highly sophisticated surveillance campaign executed against one single specific property.
A very targeted operation.
Very targeted. So our mission today for this deep dive is to decode these systematic surveillance tactics used by professional casing squads.
We're going to break it all down.
Yeah, we are going to learn how to spot the invisible tripwires of property reconnaissance, figure out what these operatives are actually looking for, and ultimately determine how you can design robust, proactive perimeter defenses for your own home.
It is so important to take that proactive step.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want you, the listener, to just take a second and think about your own daily routine.
Think about how set in your ways you might be.
Right. Think about how predictable it is. When do you leave for work? When are the lights usually turned off at night in your house?
When do you take the trash out?
Exactly. How easily could a total stranger learn the intimate structural details of your life just by watching from the street for a few days?
It is a lot easier than most people think.
It is scary easy. Let's start with a concept that security analysts in these logs refer to as the chameleon network.
Yeah, the chameleon network. The term is highly appropriate because it really gets at the core mechanism of the threat here.
How so?
Well, typically when we are told to watch out for suspicious behavior, or, when we think of a casing operation, we expect to see the same suspicious vehicle parked down the street.
Right, the classic sketchy van.
Exactly, the sketchy van. Or we expect the exact same individual lingering near the property day after day. We naturally look for repetition of an identity.
But that is not what this network does.
Not at all. The chameleon network uses a rotating shift of entirely different individuals. They seamlessly integrate into the local, cultural, and demographic fabric.
So they just blend right in.
Right. Their entire operational philosophy is designed to prevent you or your local security guard from ever connecting the dots.
The logs from July 13th to July 15th, 2026 really illustrate this tactic perfectly.
They really do. It's a textbook example.
So on day 1, which is July 13th, the logs show an incident at exactly 17:05 p.m. A woman wearing a traditional burqa walks past the target property.
And on the surface, that is perfectly normal for the area.
completely normal. But the analysis reveals she actually has a concealed mobile phone strategically positioned to record high-definition footage of the gate and the house.
Which is wild.
It is wild. Then, on day 2, we see a completely different demographic. At 7:07 a.m., it is an elderly man in a traditional shirt, a mundu, and he is holding a namaz cap.
A totally different profile.
Exactly. But then later that exact same day, at 15:11 p.m., the operative changes yet again. This time it is a younger woman wearing a Nazneen cap and a hijab.
And the cycle just continues right into day 3.
Right. We see another woman in a parda sweeping the area in the early afternoon.
But then comes the data point that shifts this entire thing from just, suspicion to confirmed systemic tracking.
This part blew my mind. Exactly 48 hours after her very first appearance, the original woman in the parda returns.
Down to the exact minute.
Yes, 17:05 p.m. on the dot.
It is just incredible precision.
It's like watching a highly choreographed Broadway play, where the actors keep swapping costumes and roles, but the underlying blocking and the stage directions stay exactly the same.
That is a great analogy.
But I have to push back here for a second, because if I am playing devil's advocate, I am looking at this log and thinking, well, if these people look totally different, they are different ages, different genders, wearing entirely different traditional cultural clothing, how on earth do the security analysts know they are part of the same hostile network?
Is a really fair question.
Because a neighborhood is a busy place, right? People walk by houses all the time. How do we know this isn't just a massive coincidence of diverse foot traffic?
Are they tracking cell phone pings, or is this purely visual analysis?
Yeah, exactly. How do they know?
That is the essential question, and the answer actually relies almost entirely on visual analysis, specifically what we call behavioral fingerprinting.
Behavioral fingerprint. Okay, break that down for us.
Well, disguises are highly effective at masking a face.
Right.
Or altering an age profile, or changing a socioeconomic indicator.
Sure, you can put on a costume.
Exactly. But disguises cannot easily mask biomechanics or deeply ingrained operational training.
Oh, that makes sense.
Despite the rotating personas, the different clothing, and the varied times of day, every single one of these individuals executed the exact same military-style ocular protocol when passing the property.
The shared ocular pattern, I saw that on the logs. Walk me through what that actually looks like in practice, because, we all look at houses when we walk down a nice street.
We do. We
Yeah.
definitely do. But we look at them holistically, or aesthetically.
Like, oh, nice garden.
Right. A normal pedestrian might admire the landscaping or glance at a really nice car in the driveway or like the paint color. Their eyes just sort of wander naturally.
That's casual.
But the individuals in this network, however, share a highly structured, completely unnatural visual routine. They all performed a specific sequence.
What was the sequence?
First, a deliberate vertical scan. They start from the ground level foundation, look up the walls, all the way to the roofline.
Okay, so bottom to top.
Yes. And that is immediately followed by a lateral scan, sweeping from the far left of the property boundary all the way to the far right.
So they are essentially drawing a grid over the property with their eyes.
Precisely. They are structurally mapping entry points, identifying the location of utility boxes, checking which specific windows are maybe unlatched on the second floor, and probing for internal movement.
Wow, that is intense.
And the undeniable link between all these seemingly different disguised individuals is how they actually conclude this visual sweep.
The stare, right?
Yes. Every single one of them finished their vertical and lateral scans with a rigid, fixed stare directed squarely at the property's primary windows.
Now, why the fixed stare? Because if you are trying to be stealthy and, blend in, stopping to aggressively stare at someone's living room window seems totally counterproductive.
It seems that way, yeah. But it is actually a very aggressive counter-surveillance tactic.
Wait, really? How?
They are deliberately holding that stare to test the environment. They want to know, is anyone inside watching me back?
Oh, wow.
If I stare at this window for 3 whole seconds, does the curtain twitch? Does a guard step out? Does a dog start barking?
They are poking the system.
Exactly. They are testing the alertness of the internal defenses. And because every single operative, from the elderly man to the women in traditional dress, executed this exact same grid and stare protocol, the analysts could definitively link them as the single network operating under the same standard operating procedure.
That structural discipline is just intense.
It takes serious training.
And speaking of biomechanics giving away the disguise, there was one specific anomaly detailed in the day one logs that I found absolutely fascinating.
Oh, I think I know which one you mean.
The security analyst flagged it as the runway walk.
Ah, yes, the physiological giveaway. This is just a perfect example of how the requirements of surveillance actively conflict with human biology.
Let me set the scene for you guys listening. This is the woman in the parda on day one. The logs specifically note that the asphalt road she was transiting was highly uneven.
Very rough terrain.
Yeah, it was littered with dips and rough patches. Yet, she was marching over this terrain with a rigid, perfectly straight upper body alignment.
Which is so unnatural.
The analysts literally compared her gait to a high-end fashion model on a runway, or like a soldier marching on parade. It was entirely unnatural for the environment she was in.
Completely out of place.
So why would someone trying to blend in walk like that? It draws attention.
It reveals how technology dictates physical movement and really how difficult it is to hide that influence.
Technology, what do you mean?
She was consciously overriding her natural pedestrian instincts. Consider how you walk on an uneven dirt path or a potholed road. Your posture naturally adapts, right?
Yeah, I'm looking down so I don't break my ankle.
Exactly. Your shoulders loosen, you sway slightly to maintain your balance, you instinctively drop your chin to look in the ground to avoid tripping, and your arms counterbalance your steps.
Right. Just normal walking.
But this operative had a concealed mobile phone, likely strapped to her chest or held really tightly beneath her clothing.
And her goal is to get clear video footage of the house.
Exactly. If you want to capture high-definition stabilized video of a property security layout, the specific make and model of the cameras, the type of deadbolts on the gate you cannot bounce around.
You can't have shaky cam footage.
No, you have to transform your own body into a human tripod.
A human tripod, that is wild.
She locked her core, stiffened her spine, and isolated her lower body movement from her upper body to ensure the camera lens remained perfectly level.
So she is basically gliding over the pothole.
Yes, she was actively sacrificing her physical comfort and honestly even her physical safety on that uneven road to prioritize structural intelligence gathering.
Just to get the shot.
It is a massive, uncontrollable behavioral red flag if you know what you are looking for.
It's incredible how the body just betrays the intention.
You can't hide everything.
We've explored how they manipulate clothing and personas, but the logs document a shift into something even more deceptive.
Oh, the props.
Yes, the props. They don't just use disguises, they use physical props to manipulate the psychology of the observer. The logs refer to this as the grandfather cover.
This is where the psychology of surveillance transitions from merely hiding in plain sight to actively manipulating the emotional and cognitive biases of the target.
And the data here is just staggering. Between July 11th and July 16th, the security logs recorded an elderly man executing 20 specific, detailed scans of the property over just 6 days.
20 times in less than a week.
20 times. And his primary prop was a heavy industrial Hercules loading bicycle.
To really understand the tactical brilliance of this, we have to examine our inherent biological threat assessments.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine a healthy, highly fit, 20-something male walking back and forth past your front gate 20 times in a single week, moving at an incredibly slow, lingering pace.
Oh, my primitive security instincts would go absolutely crazy.
You'd immediately feel threatened.
I would assume I am about to be robbed. You'd probably call the police, or at the very least make sure your doors are locked and stand visible in the window to let him know you see him.
Right. It is a blatant, undeniable red flag. But an elderly man laboriously pushing a heavy, cumbersome loading bicycle up a street.
It's totally different.
He automatically triggers a wave of psychological justifications in the viewer's mind. Your brain immediately supplies an alibi for his behavior.
Your brain just makes up a story for him.
It says, well, of course he is moving slowly, he is older, and pushing that industrial bike looks absolutely exhausting.
Right, you almost feel bad for him.
The bicycle acts as a perfect, culturally acceptable alibi for his slow pacing. It essentially grants him social permission to loiter.
The bike is basically an invisibility cloak woven out of our own assumptions.
That is a brilliant way to phrase it.
But the logs point out that the bike wasn't just an alibi, was it? It was a highly functional physical tool for the casing operation itself.
Yeah, it serves multiple operational functions. First, a large loading bicycle acts as a physical shield.
A shield from the cameras.
Yes. It obscures low-angle camera views of his lower body, which makes it significantly harder for security analysts to track his specific gait, measure his stride length, or identify distinct physical footwear.
Oh, because footwear is a huge giveaway in surveillance.
Huge. Second, and honestly more importantly, it provides a built-in, unassailable excuse to stop completely.
He can just take a break.
Right. He can halt his progress, lean heavily against the handlebars right outside the target gate, and pretend to catch his breath or rest his legs.
Wow.
To any observer, it is just an old man taking a break. But in reality, he is using that stationary moment to execute the vertical and lateral ocular scans we discussed earlier.
It is weaponized resting.
It is exactly what it is.
And the use of props to justify lingering doesn't stop with bicycles. The logs detail a fascinating set of incidents late at night, a midnight dog walk on July 18th, and another on July 28th.
The dog leash.
Yeah. If a heavy bicycle is the ultimate daytime alibi, a dog leash has to be the ultimate late-night justification.
It is perhaps the most effective nighttime prop available. Think about the standard rhythm of any residential neighborhood after dark.
It's usually pretty quiet.
Exactly. If you see a person just standing silently on a street corner at 10:14 p.m. staring down the block, your suspicion is immediately aroused.
Yeah, you wonder, why are they there? What are they waiting for?
But if you take that exact same person in the exact same location at the exact same time and put a dog leash in their hand,
They instantly transform from a potential threat into just another neighbor.
it provides a universal excuse for erratic movement. Dogs sniff bushes, they walk in circles, they stop randomly.
It justifies frequent unscheduled pauses.
It justifies meandering slowly along a property's boundary line in the dark.
Exactly. But the July 28th incident at 10:01 p.m. highlights something even more advanced. The dog leash was the primary cover, but the operative utilized a secondary behavioral technique.
The hair grooming.
Yes, the logs note that while standing near the property, the dog walker was actively grooming their hair.
Which seems like such a weird detail to include in a security log.
Yeah, that detail really stood out to me. Why note that? I originally thought, like, what, are they making sure they look good for the security cameras? But that can't be right.
No, far from it. It is what we call a tactical distraction.
A tactical distraction.
When you are standing completely still and staring intently at a house, and the logs specifically note, this operative was scanning the second floor lighting to map out the residents' sleep schedules.
Creepy.
Very. When you do that, your overall body language becomes very rigid, predatory, and hyper-focused. Humans are very good at subconsciously detecting when someone is intensely focused on something.
We just feel that predatory gaze.
Yes, so the hair grooming is meant to break that tension.
By bringing their hand up to casually adjust their hair or scratch their head.
Precisely. They inject a highly mundane, relaxed upper body movement into an otherwise tense posture.
Oh, I see.
If a watchman or a resident getting a glass of water happens to glance out the window at that exact moment, they don't process a predator casing the second floor.
They process a casual neighbor adjusting their hair while their dog sniffs the grass.
It shatters the visual tension of the surveillance act.
It is so deeply manipulative. You are constantly being fed these little visual lies to keep your guard down.
It is a constant psychological game.
And speaking of visual lies and breaking tension, we absolutely have to talk about the stage delay tactic on July 31st.
Oh, this is a classic.
This is where an operative pulled up right in front of the target property's vehicle gate on a Honda Activa scooter. The logs even have the specific registration, KL01CJ727.
The sheer precision of that log entry is exactly why this broader pattern of deception was eventually caught.
The analysts were on it. So the rider executes this sudden, totally unscheduled stop right at the breach point. He takes off his helmet and casually hangs it on the mirror.
Just a normal guy on a scooter.
Then he reaches into his pocket, pulls out a wad of cash, and slowly counts it in full view of the gate.
Taking his time.
After that, he checks his phone for a while. Then, this is the crazy part, he literally picks his nose.
Yeah, that detail always gets people.
And finally, he just drives off without even bothering to put the helmet back on. When I read that, my first instinct was, okay, this guy is just lost or distracted. What is actually going on here?
What you describe as your first instinct is exactly the response the operative was counting on.
So I fell for it.
Most people would. This is a textbook stationary posture test. The operative needed to justify an extended stationary presence directly in front of the primary vulnerability of the property.
The main gate.
The main gate. Every single action he took, removing the helmet, counting the cash, checking the phone, and yes, the remarkably gross act of picking his nose is a hyper-specific, highly choreographed sequence weaponized to buy time.
Because nobody who is a sophisticated criminal mastermind picks their nose in front of a high-definition security camera. It's almost like anti-camouflage.
That is a really brilliant way to put it. It projects a false sense of vulnerability, distraction, and casualness.
You just write him off as a dummy.
If live security personnel were monitoring that gate feed, they would almost certainly dismiss him as a disorganized delivery driver, a lost commuter, or just an unhygienic local.
Right.
But while he is engaging in these deeply unsuspicious, mundane activities, his peripheral vision and his situational awareness are entirely locked on the gate's locking mechanism,
The hinges, the locks.
the hinge structures, and any immediate physical response from the property's security team. He is gathering high-value structural intelligence while hiding behind a veil of complete incompetence.
We have talked about how they use props to justify lingering on the street. But what happens when they don't just want an excuse to be on the street, but a legitimate reason to be right up against your compound wall?
That requires a different strategy.
The logs show them integrating right into the local gig economy. Let's dig into the use of occupational pretexts.
This represents a significant escalation in access.
I mean, this is a huge step up, right? They're basically buying access.
Yeah. When a surveillance network utilizes familiar blue-collar professions like tile-laying laborers, bedsheet salespeople, or housekeeping staff, they are purchasing the right to be in close proximity to the target.
They belong there.
They are using the facade of hard work as a shield.
The tile-laying facade from July 18th to the 22nd is just wild to read about. You have this group of migrant workers supposedly hired for a local construction job in the neighborhood.
Which happens all the time.
All the time. But the security logs flag them almost immediately for straying way outside the normal transit behaviors you would expect from contractors.
If we look at the baseline behavior of skilled labor, it is entirely focused on physical output and efficiency.
Right. Time is money.
If you are hired to cut tiles, mix mortar, and lay floors, your attention, your energy, and your physical presence should be concentrated on the specific job site and the materials. You want to get the job done and get paid.
But that's absolutely not what these individuals were doing.
Not even close.
The logs document them utilizing military-style lead-and-follow tactical formations as they walk down the street.
Which is a dead giveaway.
They had synced communication using AirPods. They kept their mobile phones constantly in their right hands, ready to record.
And they were using the hair grooming trick too, right?
Yes. They were repeatedly using that hair grooming distraction technique we discussed earlier for facial concealment. And they were actively auditing the camera placements and the structural integrity of the target's compound walls.
So methodical.
Now, I have to ask, because I want to make sure we aren't just being paranoid for the listeners, where is the line?
It is a blurry line for a lot of people.
Right. Where is the actual line between a bored contractor just looking around, admiring the architecture of a fancy new neighborhood, and active, hostile reconnaissance?
It is a critical distinction to make, so we avoid paranoia. The line lies in the deliberate, systematic, and documented nature of the observation.
Okay, deliberate and systematic.
A curious contractor might slow down to admire the stonework on a neighboring house. They might look at a nice car. But they do not conduct a comprehensive multi-point structural review of the front, side, and rear compound walls over a continuous period of 4 days.
That would be absurd.
They do not naturally adopt staggered, tactical walking formations to maximize their overlapping fields of view. They do not coordinate their movements via hidden earpieces while passing a property they are not even working on.
Right, you don't need a tactical formation to lay grout.
Exactly. These actions are completely outside the scope of laying tiles. They require a specific, practiced intelligence-gathering skill set.
And their actions escalated far beyond just looking. On July 22nd at 16:19 p.m., the logs detail something called psychological probing.
This incident is particularly chilling.
One of these supposed tile workers stopped dead in the middle of the street. He let out a loud, deliberate howl, smiled broadly, and aggressively peered straight through an open window deep into the target property.
This is a crucial pivot point in any casing operation. This specific action was not about intelligence gathering in the traditional sense.
What was it then?
This was active boundary testing.
Boundary testing, like poking a bear to see if it wakes up?
A very apt analogy.
Oh.
Consider the timeline here. The surveillance network has already spent days mapping the static defenses.
Right. They know where the cameras are, the height of the walls, the type of locks on the gate.
Now they need to map the dynamic element, The human response.
The people inside.
By howling loudly in the street and aggressively staring into an open window with a mocking smile, the operative is executing a highly provocative action. He is injecting chaos into the environment and waiting to measure the ripples.
So he wants to see what happens next.
Exact.
Does a guard dog start barking? Do the internal lights turn on? Does a resident pull the curtain shut? Does a private security guard step out of a booth to challenge him?
All of those are data points.
Yeah.
And most importantly, how long does that response take?
Oh, the response time.
If he howls and a guard appears in 10 seconds,
Yeah.
he knows the perimeter is actively monitored. If he howls, stares for 2 whole minutes and nothing happens, he has successfully confirmed a massive vulnerability in the property's active defense posture.
He knows he has a 2-minute window to break in.
He is mapping the occupants' reaction time and their aggression threshold.
That brings a completely different level of intent to the operation. The security analysts didn't just log these events as a random assortment of creepy behaviors. They categorized them into a highly specific timeline.
Yes, the intelligence mapping timeline.
They mapped out the entire anatomy of the intelligence gathering. Let's examine the 3 hidden surveillance phases and what the logs call high-frequency loops.
Intelligence gathering is a methodical, phased process. The logs clearly demonstrate that this network was operating on a structured, 3-phase operational timeline, moving from broad observation to targeted vulnerability exploitation.
Phase 1 is categorized as daylight mapping. A prime example in the logs is the July 27th incident.
The scooter incident.
Yeah, we have an electric scooter heavily overloaded with 3 individuals riding triples, nobody wearing helmets.
Just looking like reckless locals.
As they pass the target property, the pillion rider sitting all the way in the back is actively using a mobile phone to log the house layout, the visible movements of the residents, and the logs emphasize this, the specific vehicles parked in the driveway.
This is the foundational asset inventory phase. During daylight hours, a residential target is usually at its most active and visible state.
People are coming and going.
The casing squad uses this time to establish the baseline of normalcy. Who appears to be home? What specific cars are parked in the driveway? What are the primary visible entry and exit points?
They're building the canvas, which sets up Phase 2 midnight vulnerability checks. Just 10 hours after that scooter incident, at 01:23 in the morning, the exact same individual who is on the back of the scooter returns to the property.
But the conditions are totally different.
Right. But this time, he is entirely alone, on foot, and he executes a quick, targeted visual sweep of the property. Now, why this specific sequence? Why map in the day and then immediately return in the dead of night?
What is happening here is the vital correlation of data. The perpetrator is deliberately mapping the daytime assets against the nighttime vulnerabilities.
So comparing the 2 states.
Right. If a specific luxury car was parked in the driveway at 5:00 p.m. during Phase 1, is it still parked there at 1:30 a.m. during Phase 2?
If it's gone, that tells him someone in the house works a night shift or has a very active late-night social life.
Precisely. It reveals the unseen rhythms of the household. Furthermore, returning at 1:30 a.m. allows the operative to check blind spots that literally only exist in the dark. Yes. How far into the driveway does the ambient street lamp reach? Are there motion sensor floodlights? And if so, what is their exact trigger range? Phase 1 provides the map. Phase 2 highlights the shadows and the structural weaknesses on that map.
And that data feeds directly into Phase 3 sensor and boundary probing.
The escalation phase.
Over a 5-day period from July 26th to the 31st, the logs show the behavior shifting from passive observation of the gate to intentionally waving hands at the perimeter security cameras.
They want to be seen.
They are actively trying to trigger the motion sensing alarms to test the response times.
They know the cameras are present from Phase 1. Now, in Phase 3, they need to determine the operational status of those cameras.
Are they actually plugged in and monitored?
Right. If an operative brazenly waves at a camera lens and no physical response occurs, they can deduce with high confidence that the system is likely a passive system,
Merely recording footage to a hard drive.
rather than an active system being monitored in real time by a live security team.
It's exactly like a hacker pinging a corporate firewall. You just send a tiny packet of data to see if the system administrator's dashboard lights up.
That is a perfect technical analogy.
If nobody blocks your IP address, you know the gate is effectively unguarded. And then the probing gets incredibly dark.
It really does.
On July 31st, a lone individual returns and engages in blatant, lewd, exhibitionist behavior. He is documented rubbing his genitals over his clothing while walking slowly past the gate, maintaining a continuous mocking grin directed right at the security infrastructure.
This represents the ultimate psychological posturing within Phase 3.
It's just so brazen.
It indicates a complete and total lack of fear of detection or consequence. They have moved entirely from covert intelligence mapping to overt psychological hostility.
They feel invincible.
It is a terrifying indicator that the intelligence gathering phase is concluding, and they feel highly confident in their operational superiority over the target's defenses. They believe they own the environment.
Alongside these three distinct phases, the logs highlighted these patterns called high-frequency loops.
Yes, the loops.
On July 30th, a two-person team of women executed 5 separate consecutive passes of the target property in just 31 minutes.
That is incredibly fast.
From 5:33 a.m. to 6:04 a.m. And the crucial detail is that the time intervals between their passes were rapidly shrinking. It went from an 18-minute gap down to a 4-minute gap, down to a 3-minute gap.
Narrowing the window.
Finally, on their 5th and final pass, they expanded their visual scope to intensely study the ground floor entry vulnerabilities.
This is a highly aggressive tactic designed to identify the absolute smallest window of operational opportunity.
But how does that actually work? How does walking past a house over and over in shrinking intervals give them actionable data?
Imagine the target property has a security guard at the gate, or a resident who consistently steps out to pick up the morning paper.
Okay, a routine event.
If the casing squad passes by at 5:33 a.m. and observes the guard at his post, they wait. They pass by again 18 minutes later. The guard is still there.
Okay, so the guard hasn't moved.
They pass by 4 minutes later. Suddenly the guard is gone. They pass by 3 minutes later, and the guard is just returning.
Oh, wow. I see it now.
By executing this shrinking loop, they have not only identified that the guard takes a patrol or a bathroom break, but they have mathematically measured the exact duration of that vulnerability window down to the minute.
That is terrifyingly precise.
Shrinking the intervals allows them to measure the target's routine with devastating precision.
It's turning a human habit into a mathematical equation. Which brings us to the next tactic detailed in the logs. And I have to admit, this is where the tactics exploit our deepest, most ingrained social demographics.
The use of minors.
We are looking at multi-person roles and the deliberate use of children.
From a psychological and tactical standpoint, this is arguably the most sophisticated and disturbing strategy documented in the entire security log.
It's just so dark.
It preys entirely on our societal blind spots.
On July 31st at 17:18 p.m., there is an incident the analyst labeled the staged family pretext. A highly coordinated 3-person formation walks casually down the street.
Looking like any other family out for an evening walk.
Right. It is a woman wearing a headscarf, flanked by 2 minors' children. And together, they execute a flawless 3-point tactical roleplay right in front of the target property.
Let's break down those 3 tactical roles, because they operate with the precision of a military fire team.
You have the woman in the center. The logs categorize her as the distraction. She keeps her eyes glued to the screen of her mobile phone, completely simulating a distracted, everyday civilian just trying to get home.
She is the anchor.
She is the visual anchor that makes the entire group look normal and unthreatening to anyone watching from a distance. Then you have the role of the mapper.
The lead child.
This is the lead minor, walking slightly in front of the woman. This child is actively, loudly counting out loud 1, 2, 3, and pointing a finger directly at every single visible security camera on the property, mapping the exact locations and blind spots.
And finally, rounding out the formation, we have the watcher.
Right. The rear minor, trailing slightly behind, keeping their eyes locked intently on the front door and the guard station to monitor if any residents or security personnel were alerted by the other kid pointing and shouting at the cameras.
Monitoring the reaction.
I have to say, this feels almost like a movie script. It is so cold and calculating. Why on earth would a professional surveillance network take the immense operational risk of involving children in a casing operation?
It seems like a massive risk to involve untrained minors, but tactically it is absolutely brilliant because it perfectly exploits our deepest social norms and evolutionary protections.
Because we don't fear kids.
Think about it. If an adult male walks down a residential street, stopping to point directly at your security cameras and counting them aloud, security is deployed immediately.
Yeah, you'd call the cops on a grown man doing that.
It is an overt, undeniable threat. But children are naturally curious. They point at things. They play counting games with cars, trees, and Yes, cameras.
It's just kids being kids.
Society is conditioned to rarely, if ever, suspect children of malicious intent.
It's like using a Trojan horse, but wrapped in a layer of absolute innocence. You are basically using a child as a human sonar ping to map the room, knowing the security guards will just smile and think it's a cute game.
We just filter them out as completely harmless.
Precisely. The surveillance network uses the child's natural societal immunity to suspicion to openly, brazenly map out the exact coordinate zones of the perimeter security grid in broad daylight.
And the security logs confirmed beyond a shadow of a doubt that this was an intentional staged deception, not just a random family walk.
Yeah, that was the chilling part of the entry. The analysts noted that the very moment the group cleared the target property's perimeter, the entire performance stopped.
It just turned off like a switch.
The pointing, the loud counting, the monitoring of the front door, it all completely ceased. The children adjusted their posture, and the group acted like a completely normal, silent family as they passed the adjacent houses on the block.
The behavior was a localized performance, executed exclusively within the target zone.
So, with all these disguises, props, and psychological manipulations, how do you actually spot them? The security analysts in these logs found one physiological giveaway that cuts through all of it.
The ultimate tell.
A tell that reveals the true intent, regardless of the costume or the cover story. The logs refer to this as hazard neglect and tunnel vision.
This concept is the physiological core of the entire behavioral analysis. This is how you spot the chameleon, no matter what mask they are wearing.
They call it the pothole litmus test. Let's revisit our grandfather with the heavy Hercules bicycle and cross-reference it with a few other incidents from July 28th and 29th where subjects were doing slow transit on bicycles.
The terrain is key here.
The logs explicitly document that the street immediately in front of the target property had highly uneven road humps and prominent visible potholes.
It was a rough road.
Very rough. And in every single instance recorded in the logs of these individuals passing the property, the subjects completely ignored those physical road hazards.
To understand why this is such a massive red flag, if we connect this to cognitive science and neurology, we have to look at the baseline behavior of a standard human pedestrian or cyclist.
Okay, lay it on us.
When you are navigating an urban environment, your brain subconsciously prioritizes immediate physical environmental hazards. It is a primal survival instinct.
You don't want to get hurt.
You look for oncoming cars, you adjust your path to avoid bumping into other people, and you instinctively constantly scan the ground immediately in front of you to navigate uneven terrain, avoid potholes, or step over curbs.
It's automatic.
Your brain's primary overriding objective is physical safety.
But these individuals, despite their diverse disguises, weren't doing that at all.
No. They were systematically violating their own baseline road safety instincts. When an individual repeatedly ignores immediate physical danger, such as the high risk of tripping, falling, or dropping a very heavy, cumbersome loading bicycle in order to maintain a fixed, unbroken stair, reflective glass, entry gates, or second-floor lighting, something profound is happening in their neural pathways.
They literally have tunnel vision.
Exactly. Their brain has consciously, deliberately overridden their evolutionary physical safety protocols to prioritize structural intelligence gathering.
That is wild.
It is similar to the concept of inattentional blindness, much like someone texting while driving who completely fails to see a red light.
They are so focused on the phone, the world disappears.
The cognitive load required to conduct a multi-point, detailed security audit of a property while maintaining a cover identity is so incredibly high that their brain simply stops processing the ground beneath their feet.
It just deletes the potholes from their reality.
It filters the potholes out as irrelevant data. It is the undeniable physiological proof of hostile intent.
This hazard neglect applies to the umbrella camouflage incident as well, right? On July 29th, the logs describe a housekeeping persona walking down the street using a large open umbrella.
But the weather didn't match.
No, it was a mild, completely clear, sunny day.
Using an umbrella on a clear day is a classic, albeit somewhat obvious, counter-surveillance tactic.
They intentionally tilted the canopy of the umbrella forward to completely obscure their face from the target's overhead security cameras, and they were peeping underneath the rim to gather data.
Like a mobile hide.
But crucially, the logs note that while they were executing this incredibly sneaky visual surveillance, they also completely ignored the potholes and uneven terrain right in front of them.
The umbrella is a physical tool designed to defeat facial recognition and overhead optics, but by its very nature, it severely limits the user's field of vision.
You can't see where you're walking.
By tilting it down to hide their face, they intentionally created a massive physical blind spot for their own feet and immediate path. A normal safety-conscious pedestrian would almost never do this while walking on a hazardous potholed road.
You'd twist an ankle.
The fact that this operative marched straight through the potholes, risking a sprained ankle or a fall, just to keep their visual lock on the facility's infrastructure under the rim of the umbrella, confirms their priority.
The intel was worth the risk.
The target data was infinitely more important to them than their own physical safety.
So we have deconstructed the methods. We know how they hide, how they probe, and the physiological tells that give them away. What does this all mean for us?
This is the most important part.
This is where we pivot to proactive countermeasures. We have spent this entire deep dive analyzing how these highly sophisticated chameleon networks operate, how they meticulously map our homes, how they exploit our psychology, and how they weaponize our own assumptions against us.
So how do you fight back?
Exactly. How do you actually defend against a network that has already mapped your blind spots?
The fundamental shift you have to make is moving from a passive security mindset, just hoping your locks hold, to an active, disruptive security mindset.
Disruptive security.
You cannot just rely on static defenses like deadbolts and cameras. You have to actively disrupt their intelligence gathering process. You have to make their operation economically and tactically unviable.
Let's start with defeating the physical tools they use, defeating the umbrella, and defeating the fixed stare.
First, you must comprehensively audit your camera fields of view. If an operative is successfully using an umbrella or a wide-brimmed hat to defeat your high-elevation roof-mounted cameras, you need to change the angle of engagement.
Bring the cameras down.
Deploy low-angle or ground-level hidden lenses, perhaps integrated into landscaping or low-gate pillars. You want to capture facial features from the chest up, completely bypassing the canopy of the umbrella entirely.
Oh, that's smart. Look up under the hat.
Second, ensure all your cameras have overlapping fields of view. There should be no dark corners or single points of failure where an operative can stand and observe.
And what about that vertical and lateral ocular scanning? The fixed stare they use to see inside the house and monitor the residents?
You have to ruthlessly eliminate their visual access from the street. The intelligence they gather is only as good as what their eyes can actually process.
Right. If they can't see it, they can't map it.
You need to deploy high-quality mesh curtains, adjustable louvers, or one-way privacy film on all street-facing windows.
How does that actively disrupt them, though? I mean, it blocks the view, sure.
Because when an operative executes that fixed stare, their brain is craving a dopamine hit of actionable data. They want to see a shadow moving, a lock turning, a TV turning off.
They want a reward for the risk they are taking standing out there.
If they hit a one-way privacy film, you aren't just blocking their view, you are starving their intelligence loop. They're burning valuable time standing on the street, increasing their risk of exposure with every passing second, and getting absolutely zero data in return.
You just waste their time.
You neutralize their primary tactic by blinding the observer.
I love that concept, starving the intelligence loop. And then there is the strategy of disrupting the pattern itself. The logs showed these incredible predictable rhythms. The hijab-wearing doula that returned exactly 47 hours later.
The precision.
The Parda lady who came back at exactly 17:05 p.m. down to the minute.
Criminal networks rely heavily on predictability. They want to confirm that your house is empty or your guard is asleep every single Tuesday at exactly 17:0.
They want to know your routine is solid.
If your security logs show predictable scanning times, you must actively weaponize that data and break your own routine.
How do you do that practically, day to day? I mean, we all have jobs and schedules.
You set smart alerts or calendar reminders for those specific time windows identified in the logs. If the data shows they always pass by at 17:05, ensure that at exactly 17:05, you actively and visibly change the state of the property.
Change the state? Like what?
Move a vehicle from the street into the driveway. Draw all the curtains abruptly. Turn on a prominent, bright exterior light. Have your security guard stand explicitly at the front gate during that specific 10-minute window.
Just do something different?
When the casing squad arrives at 17:05, expecting a dormant target, they see that the environment has radically changed. More importantly, they realize their historical data is no longer reliable.
It throws their whole spreadsheet off.
You ruin their intelligence model.
That is such an empowering way to look at it. You aren't just hiding. You are actively ruining their data collection. And finally, we have to talk about the power of the log itself. We have been reading from these incredible, detailed incident analysis reports.
Documentation is true power in security. Building a multi-day timeline of timestamps, behavioral anomalies, and specific clothing shifts is exactly what law enforcement and private security need to intervene effectively.
It proves there's a pattern.
A single weird event,
Hmm.
a guy picking his nose at the gate is just a feeling of unease. You can't act on it.
The cops won't arrest a guy for picking his nose.
But a 6-day log showing 20 passes by the exact same individual with a heavy bicycle, meticulously ignoring potholes and mapping camera angles, that is actionable, empirical criminal intelligence.
It transforms a vague sense of paranoia into a concrete weapon you can use to defend your home.
It gives you control back.
Okay, we have covered an immense amount of ground today. We have looked deeply into the incredible sophistication of modern casing operations. The chameleon network with its rotating disguises, the rigid runway walks overriding human biomechanics.
We covered a lot of psychological manipulation.
We explored the weaponized pretexts, the grandfathers using heavy bicycles as shields, the late-night dog walkers using hair grooming to break visual tension, the tactical stationary tests of dropping cash and picking noses.
We have also explored the deeply manipulative and cynical use of minors to map blind spots, exploiting our societal assumptions of innocence.
That part will stick with me for a while.
And, crucially, we identified the undeniable physiological tell of tunnel vision and hazard neglect.
It fundamentally changes how you look at the world outside your window. And I want to leave you with a final, lingering idea to chew on as you go about your day.
Something to really think about.
We spend so much time, so much money, and so much anxiety worrying about the physical strength of our locks. We obsess over the thickness of the deadbolts, the complexity of the alarm panels, the shatter resistance of the reinforced glass.
We focus on the hardware.
But the true battle for your security is fought weeks before anyone ever physically touches your door handle. It is fought out there, in the street, in the subtle, fleeting glances of a passerby, the slow pace of a bicycle, and the rigid posture of someone walking on uneven asphalt.
The perimeter of your security is not your front door. It is the absolute edge of their line of sight.
Exactly. So the question you need to ask yourself tonight isn't just whether your doors are locked tight. The real question is, who is out there in the dark watching you lock them?
Stay alert out there.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. I highly encourage you to look at your neighborhood with fresh, analytical eyes tomorrow morning. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.